You are insane, Nora. Absolutely insane. The words cut through the evening air like shards of glass, and Nora barely flinched anymore. She had heard variations of this her entire life. The speaker was Marcus, one of the younger warriors from the Silverwood pack. His face twisted in a mixture of disgust and fascination as he watched her kneel in the dirt beside a massive gray wolf. The creature's eyes glowed amber in the fading light. Its lips pulled back just enough to show teeth that could tear through flesh and bone with terrifying ease. Any sane person would have run. Any wolf shifter with basic survival instincts would have at least maintained a respectful distance. But Nora simply placed her hand on the wolf's scarred muzzle, her fingers gentle against fur matted with old blood, and whispered something too low for Marcus to hear. The wolf's growl subsided. Its body relaxed. Within seconds, the deadly predator that had been terrorizing the eastern border for 3 days was lying on its side, allowing Nora to examine a festering wound on its flank. Marcus took an involuntary step backward. This is not natural. You do not have a wolf. You should not be able to do this. Nora did not look up from her work. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, cleaning the infected gash with herbs she had gathered that morning. I am helping an injured animal. What is unnatural about compassion? She kept her voice level, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing how much. His words still stung, even after 23 years of hearing them. The truth was simple and devastating. Nora was an Omega who had never shifted. In a world where your wolf defined your worth, your place, your very identity, she was nothing, less than nothing. An aberration. She had been found as an infant on the edge of Silverwood territory, wrapped in cloth that bore no pack markings, crying beside the bodies of wolves who had clearly died protecting her. The pack had taken her in out of obligation, raised her in the orphanage, waited for her wolf to emerge. It never did. By the time she turned 18, the age when even the latest bloomers had shifted, the whispers had solidified into certainty. Nora was broken, defective. The moon goddess had forgotten her, or worse, rejected her deliberately. What no one could explain was the other thing, the impossible thing. The thing that made people like Marcus look at her with fear, disguised as contempt. Nora could communicate with wild wolves, not shifters in their wolf form. Actual, feral, never-been-human wolves. She could calm them with a touch, understand their needs, earn their trust in ways that even the most powerful alphas could not. It defied every law of their world. Shifters and wild wolves were separate species, unable to truly connect. The animal and the human soul were supposed to be merged in shifters, creating something new. Wild wolves were supposed to be incomprehensible to them, operating on pure instinct, that no amount of shared form could bridge. Yet Nora bridged it effortlessly. And for that, they called her mad. They called her cursed. They called her beast whisperer. And it was never a compliment. The gray wolf whimpered softly as Nora applied a poultice to its wound. She made a soothing sound in the back of her throat, something between a hum and a growl, and the wolf settled. There, she murmured. You will heal now. But you must stay away from the iron traps near the river. They are not meant for you, but they will not discriminate. The wolf's eyes fixed on hers, and for a moment, Nora felt that familiar pull, that sense of understanding that flowed between them like water finding its level. She saw flashes of the wolf's life, a pack decimated by disease, hunger driving it closer to shifter territory, fear and pain and desperate survival. She felt it all, and her heart ached. I know, she whispered. I know what it is to be alone. Marcus made a disgusted sound. You are talking to it like it understands you. This is exactly why everyone thinks you are working with the rogues. Maybe you are the one leading the attacks. Maybe this whole innocent act is just that. An act. Nora finally looked up at him, her green eyes steady despite the anger simmering in her chest. If I wanted to attack this pack, Marcus, I would not need rogues to do it. Every wild wolf within 50 miles would answer if I called. But I do not want to attack anyone. I want to heal. I want to help. I want to be left alone to do the only thing I am actually good at. The only thing you are good at is being a freak, Marcus spat. Before Nora could respond, the gray wolf surged to its feet with a snarl that made Marcus stumble backward, nearly tripping over his own boots. The wolf placed itself between Nora and the warrior, its hackles raised, its body coiled to spring. Nora stood slowly, placing a hand on the wolf's shoulder. No, he is not worth it. Go now. Head north. There is a valley 3 miles from here where deer are plentiful and no one will bother you. For a long moment, the wolf did not move. Then it turned its massive head, pressing its nose against Nora's palm in a gesture that looked almost reverent, and loped away into the darkening forest. Marcus stared after it, his face pale. You see, Nora said quietly, gathering her supplies. I protect this pack, even from itself. But no one wants to see that. They only want to see what makes them uncomfortable. She walked past him, her worn boots silent on the forest floor. Behind her, Marcus called out. The Alpha King arrives tomorrow. King Cale Blackthorn himself. He is coming to deal with the rogue problem. When he finds out what you are, when he sees what you can do, he will not be as tolerant as we have been. The Blackthorn line does not suffer abnormalities. He will probably have you executed as a threat. Nora paused, but did not turn around. Then I suppose tomorrow I die, she said simply. It would not be the worst thing that has happened to me. She continued walking, leaving Marcus alone in the gathering darkness. She did not let herself cry until she reached her small cabin on the outskirts of the pack settlement. It was barely more than a shack, really. One room with a fireplace, a narrow bed, shelves lined with herbs and remedies, and walls thin enough that she could hear the other pack members talking as they passed by. Talking about her. Always about her. Nora set her basket of supplies on the rough wooden table and moved to the window. Through the glass, she could see the main pack house in the distance, lit up and bustling with activity. They were preparing for the Alpha King's arrival. It was a monumental event. King Cale Blackthorn ruled the Northern Territories with absolute authority. His pack, the Blackthorn Pack, was the largest and most powerful in the region. He was said to be ruthless, brilliant, and utterly merciless with those who threatened his people. The rogue attacks had been escalating for months, coordinated strikes that did not match typical rogue behavior. Whoever or whatever was leading them had strategy, intelligence, purpose. 3 packs had already been decimated. Silverwood was next if the pattern held. Alpha Garrett of Silverwood had begged for the king's intervention, and now Cale Blackthorn was coming to save them, or conquer them. With Cale, it was often hard to tell the difference. Nora had no illusions about what his arrival meant for her. If Marcus was right, if the king discovered her abilities, he would see her as either a weapon to be controlled or a threat to be eliminated. She had no pack protection, no family, no status. She was expendable. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt only a bone-deep weariness. She was tired of being afraid, tired of hiding, tired of making herself small and quiet and harmless so that people would tolerate her existence. A soft scratching sound at her door pulled her from her thoughts. Nora smiled despite herself. She opened the door to find a small red fox sitting on her doorstep, its tail curled around its feet, its dark eyes bright with intelligence. "Hello, Ember," Nora said softly. "Come to keep me company?" The fox trotted inside like it owned the place, hopping onto the bed and settling into the blankets. Nora had found Ember 2 years ago, caught in a trap, half dead from blood loss. She had nursed the fox back to health, and Ember had simply never left. The pack tolerated the arrangement only because Ember stayed out of sight most of the time. Nora moved through her evening routine mechanically. She prepared a simple meal of bread and vegetable stew, fed Ember scraps of dried meat, banked the fire. She tried not to think about tomorrow. Tried not to imagine cold eyes judging her. finding her wanting, deciding her fate. But as she lay in bed, Ember's warm weight against her side, sleep eluded her. The wind picked up outside, howling, through the trees, and Nora heard something else beneath it. Howls. Wolf howls. Wild and mournful and somehow urgent. She sat up, her heart pounding. Ember's ears were pricked forward, alert. The howls came again, closer this time. Nora recognized the pattern. It was a warning call. Something was wrong. She dressed quickly, pulling on her cloak and boots. Ember jumped down and paced by the door, agitated. "I know," Nora murmured. "I hear them too." She slipped out into the night, following the sound. The forest was dark, the moon hidden behind clouds. But Nora knew these woods better than she knew anything else. Her feet found the path without conscious thought. The howls led her east, toward the border, toward the place where the attacks had been concentrated. When she reached the clearing, she stopped dead. There were at least 20 wild wolves gathered there, their eyes reflecting what little light penetrated the canopy. They were arranged in a loose circle, all facing inward, and, in the center, lay a massive black wolf, larger than any she had ever seen. It was injured, badly. She could smell the blood from where she stood. The wolves parted as she approached, creating a path. None of them threatened her. They knew her, trusted her. Nora knelt beside the black wolf and her breath caught. This was no ordinary wild wolf. This was something else, something ancient. Its fur seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its eyes, when they opened to look at her, were not amber or yellow, but a deep burning gold that seemed to hold centuries of knowledge. "What are you?" she whispered. The wolf made a sound, low and pained. Nora could see the wound now, a deep gash across its ribs, and worse, the black veins spreading from the injury. Poison. Wolfsbane, but a variant she had never encountered. Stronger, more virulent. "I do not know if I can heal this," she said honestly. The wolf's eyes held hers, and then, impossibly, she heard a voice in her mind. Not words. Exactly. More like feelings and images that coalesced into meaning. "You must try. The king comes. He must not find us weakened. You must protect the wild ones. You are the only bridge, the only hope." Nora's hands trembled as she pulled supplies from the pouch at her waist. She had brought her emergency kit, though she had not consciously thought to grab it. Instinct. Always instinct with the wolves. She worked quickly, cleaning the wound, applying every remedy she knew for wolfsbane poisoning. The other wolves watched in silence, their presence somehow comforting rather than threatening. She could feel their concern, their fear for this black wolf who was clearly their leader. Hours passed. Nora lost track of time, lost herself in the desperate work of trying to save a creature that should not exist. The sky was beginning to lighten when the black wolf finally stirred. The poison had not been purged completely, but it had been slowed, stopped from spreading further. "You need to rest," Nora told it. "You need to stay hidden until you are stronger. If the king's forces find you like this, they will kill you." The wolf struggled to its feet, swaying slightly. The other wolves moved in to support it, pressing against its sides. Those golden eyes fixed on Nora one more time, and she felt a wave of gratitude so profound it brought tears to her eyes. "Go," she urged. "Please. Be safe." The pack melted into the forest like shadows, the black wolf moving with them despite its injuries. Within moments, it was as if they had never been there at all. Nora sat back on her heels, exhausted. Her hands were covered in blood, her clothes torn and dirty. The sun was rising, which meant the Alpha King would arrive today, which meant she needed to get back, clean up, make herself invisible. But as she stood to leave, she heard something that made her blood run cold. Voices, human voices, and the unmistakable sound of an organized patrol. They were searching the border, looking for signs of the rogues, looking for threats. and she was standing in a clearing that reeked of wolf blood, alone, with no way to explain what she had been doing out here. Nora ran. She had no choice. She crashed through the underbrush, her heart pounding, her breath coming in gasps. Behind her, she heard shouts. They had seen her. They were giving chase. She would never make it back to her cabin. Never make it to safety. But she knew these woods. She changed direction, heading for a place she had discovered years ago. A narrow ravine with a hidden cave, concealed behind a waterfall. A place where she had hidden before when the pack's cruelty became too much to bear. She was almost there when her foot caught on a root. She went down hard, the impact driving the air from her lungs. Before she could rise, rough hands grabbed her, hauling her upright. "We got her!" someone shouted. "We got the rogue collaborator!" Nora struggled, trying to break free, but there were too many of them. 5 warriors, all larger and stronger than her. They bound her wrists with silver-laced rope that burned against her skin despite her lack of wolf. "I am not a collaborator," she gasped. "I was helping an injured wolf. That is all I do. That is all I have ever done." "Sure you were," one of them sneered. "That is why you are covered in blood and running from a patrol. That is why you were out here in the middle of the night, right where the attacks have been happening. Bring her to the pack." "House," another ordered. "Alpha Garrett will want to question her before the king arrives, and if she is working with the rogues, well, the king can deal with her himself." They dragged her through the forest, ignoring her protests, deaf to her explanations. By the time they reached the pack settlement, word had already spread. Nora the freak had finally revealed her true nature. Nora the beast whisperer was a traitor. The pack house was in chaos. Preparations for the king's arrival had been interrupted by her capture. People lined the streets, watching as she was hauled past, their faces a mixture of vindication and disgust. "I knew it," someone hissed. "I always knew she was dangerous." "Should have thrown her out years ago," another voice agreed. "Or put her down like the rabid animal she is." Nora kept her eyes down, her face burning with shame and fury. This was her life. This had always been her life. Guilty until proven innocent. Condemned for being different. They threw her into a storage room in the basement of the pack house, the silver rope still burning her wrists. The door slammed shut, and she heard the lock click into place. She was alone in the darkness, sitting on a cold stone floor, waiting for judgment. Waiting for death, most likely. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Hours passed. Nora heard the commotion above her intensify, heard the sounds of arrival. Vehicles, footsteps, commands given in voices that expected instant obedience. The Alpha King had arrived, and her fate was about to be decided. The door opened with a crash that made Nora flinch. Light flooded the small room, blinding after hours in darkness. Alpha Garrett stood in the doorway, his expression grave. Behind him were several wolves she did not recognize. Royal guards, she realized, wearing the black and silver of the Blackthorn pack. "On your feet," Garrett ordered. Nora stood. Slowly, her legs stiff, her wrists still bound. Garrett looked at her with something that might have been regret. He had never been cruel to her, merely indifferent. But now she was a problem, and problems had to be dealt with. "The king wants to see you," he said. "And Nora, for your sake, I hope you have a very good explanation for what you were doing on the border this morning." They led her upstairs, through hallways she had never been allowed to enter. The pack house was magnificent inside. All polished wood and expensive furnishings. So different from her tiny cabin with its drafty walls and second-hand everything. They stopped before a set of double doors. Garrett knocked once, then pushed them open. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice respectful. "The girl you wanted to see." Nora was pushed forward into what appeared to be a study. Rich carpets, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk. And behind that desk, standing with his back to the room, looking out a window at the forest beyond, was a man who radiated power like a furnace radiated heat. Even without seeing his face, Nora knew this was the Alpha King, Cale Blackthorn. Every instinct she did not have but somehow possessed anyway screamed at her to submit, to lower her eyes, to make herself small and unthreatening. But Nora had spent her entire life making herself small, and she was so tired of it. So she stood straight despite her bound wrists. She kept her chin up. She waited. The man at the window spoke. Without turning. His voice was deep, dark, the kind of voice that could command armies or seduce empresses with equal ease. "Tell me your name." "Nora," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "Just Nora. I have no family name." "Just Nora," he repeated, as if tasting the words. "And are you responsible for the rogue attacks on this territory, just Nora?" "No. My warriors found you fleeing from a clearing soaked in wolf blood. They say you can communicate with wild wolves in ways that should be impossible. They say you are either blessed or cursed, and no one can agree which. What do you say?" Nora took a breath. "I say that I help those who are injured. Wild wolves come to me because they know I will not hurt them. I was tending to a wounded wolf this morning, a wolf that had been poisoned with wolfsbane. When I heard your patrol approaching, I ran because I knew how it would look. I knew I would be blamed. Why would you run if you were innocent? Because I have never been given the benefit of the doubt in my entire life, Your Majesty. Because I am an Omega without a wolf, which makes me nothing. Because I am different, and different is dangerous, and dangerous things get eliminated." There was a long silence. Then the Alpha King turned around, and Nora's entire world stopped. He was beautiful, devastatingly so. Dark hair that fell to his shoulders. A face that could have been carved from marble by a master sculptor, all sharp angles and strong lines. But it was his eyes that stole her breath. They were silver, pure, molten silver. The eyes of an alpha in their prime. The eyes of a king who had never known defeat. Those eyes locked onto hers, and Nora felt it. A pull. A connection. Something that started in her chest and spread through her entire body like wildfire. Something that made her want to step forward, to close the distance between them, to touch him, and be touched, and never let go. No. This was not possible, happening. This could not be. The Alpha King's expression shifted from cold assessment to shocked recognition. His nostrils flared. His hands gripped the edge of the desk so hard the wood cracked. "Mate," he breathed, and Nora realized with crystal clarity that her life had just become infinitely more complicated. The word hung in the air between them, impossible and undeniable. Mate. The bond that could not be faked or forced. The connection that the moon goddess herself forged between souls meant to be together. Nora felt it burning through her veins, foreign and familiar all at once. She had never experienced anything like it, because she had never had a wolf to feel it with. But there was no mistaking what was happening. Her body knew. Her soul knew. This impossibly powerful, beautiful, terrifying man was hers. And she was his. Alpha Garrett made a choking sound. The guards shifted uncomfortably. No one seemed to know what to do with this development. Kyle moved around the desk slowly, his eyes never leaving Nora's face. He approached her the way someone might approach a wild animal, cautious and intent. When he was close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, he stopped. "You do not have a wolf," he said. It was not a question, but Nora answered anyway. "No, I never shifted. I was told I never would. Yet you feel the bond." "Yes." The word came out as barely more than a whisper. Cale reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he touched her face, his fingers gentle against her cheek. The contact sent a shockwave through Nora's entire body. She gasped, and she saw her reaction mirrored in Cale's eyes. "Impossible," he murmured. "The bond requires a wolf on both sides. It cannot form with a human, and you are not fully human. You are something else, something I have never encountered before." "I do not understand any of this," Nora said. Her voice was shaking now, all her earlier bravado crumbling under the weight of what was happening. "I do not understand what I am, or why I can do the things I do, or how this bond can exist when I have no wolf to bond with." Cale's thumb stroked along her jaw, a gesture that was probably meant to be comforting, but only made her more aware of him. "We will figure it out," he said. "But first, we need to deal with the immediate problem." He turned to Alpha Garrett without releasing Nora. "Remove her restraints. Now." Garrett hurried forward, fumbling with the knots of the silver rope. The moment it fell away, Nora's wrists revealed angry red burns. Cale's eyes flashed, his wolf rising to the surface. Who authorized silver on someone who has no wolf to justify it? His voice had gone dangerously soft. Garrett paled. "I did not know, Your Majesty. The warriors who captured her. They thought she was dangerous. She is 5 feet and 4 inches tall and weighs perhaps 120 pounds. She was unarmed and alone. Exactly how dangerous did they think she was?" The question was rhetorical, but Garrett answered anyway. "The ability to control wild wolves is unprecedented, Your Majesty. It could be weaponized, it could be a gift," Kyle interrupted. "Did that possibility occur to anyone? No, of course not. It is easier to fear what you do not understand than to try to understand it." He looked back at Nora. "You said you were tending to an injured wolf. Describe it." Nora hesitated. She did not want to reveal the black wolf's existence. Did not want to endanger it further. But lying to the Alpha King seemed like a supremely bad idea, especially now that they were apparently mates. Whatever that meant. Whatever that was going to mean. "It was large," she said carefully. "Larger than any wild wolf I have encountered before. Black fur. Gold eyes. It had been poisoned with a particularly virulent strain of wolfsbane. I did what I could to stabilize it, but it will need more treatment to fully recover." Cale's expression had gone very still. "Black fur and gold eyes. You are certain?" "Yes." "And this wolf. Did it communicate with you?" Nora bit her lip. Cale's fingers were still on her face, and she could feel him reading every micro-expression, every tell. There was no point in lying. "Yes. Not in words. More like impressions and feelings. It told me to protect the wild ones. It said I was the only bridge." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Kyle said something in a language Nora did not recognize. Ancient words. That felt like they carried weight beyond meaning. He released her face and turned to Garrett. "Leave us. You and your guards. I need to speak with Nora alone." Garrett looked like he wanted to protest but did not dare. He bowed and retreated, the guards following. The door closed with a soft click, and Nora was alone with the Alpha King. Her mate. The man who could order her execution with a word. Kyle moved to a cabinet and pulled out a first aid kit. He gestured to a chair. "Sit. Let me treat." "Your wrists." Nora sat, more because her legs were shaking than because she wanted to obey. Kyle knelt before her, which was so shocking she almost stood back up. A king kneeling before an omega, before a nothing. He took her hands gently, examining the burns. His touch was clinical, efficient. But Nora felt every point of contact like a brand. "The wolf you described," Cale said as he applied salve to her injuries, "should not exist. Black wolves with gold eyes are from the old stories. The very oldest stories. They were called the primordials. The first wolves. The ones who existed before the moon goddess created shifters." Nora stared at him. "I do not understand. You are saying that wolf was from mythology? I am saying that wolf was something we thought was extinct. If it still exists, if there are others, then everything we know about our history, our origins, our very nature, is incomplete. He wrapped her wrists with soft bandages, his movements sure and gentle. Nora, and you who can speak to them. You who can calm them and heal them and earn their trust. You are not an aberration. You are not broken or cursed, or any of the things these fools have called you. He looked up at her, and the intensity in his silver eyes made her breath catch. You are a whisperer, a bloodline we thought died out 1,000 years ago. You carry the gift of the original alphas, the ones who could command any wolf, shifter, or wild through the power of pure connection. You are rarer than diamonds, more valuable than any crown, and you are my mate. Nora's mind reeled. That is impossible. I am an orphan. I was found abandoned. I have no pack, no lineage, no. Your lineage is written in your blood and your bones and your gift, Kale interrupted. Where you came from, who abandoned you, those are questions we will answer in time. But what you are is clear, at least to me. He finished wrapping her wrists and sat back on his heels. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that? Nora nodded, not trusting her voice. The rogue attacks, the coordinated strikes, are the wild wolves involved? I do not think so, Nora said slowly. The attacks do not feel like wild wolf behavior. Wild wolves are not organized like that. They hunt in packs for survival, yes, but this kind of strategic assault, targeting specific locations, causing maximum damage. That requires planning. Intelligence beyond what wild wolves possess. But I have sensed something strange in the forest for the past few months. A presence that feels wrong. Corrupted. There are wolves moving through these territories that are neither wild nor pack. Something in between. Something twisted. Kale's jaw tightened. Ferals. That is what I feared. Someone is creating them deliberately. I do not know what that means, Nora admitted. Ferals are shifters who have been forced to remain in wolf form for so long that they lose their human side entirely. The process is agonizing and usually kills the subject. But if someone has perfected a method, if they can create ferals in large numbers and control them, they would have an unstoppable army. Creatures with a shifter's strength and healing, but none of the humanity that limits us. Nora felt sick. Who would do something like that? Someone who wants power badly enough to commit atrocities to get it. Someone who sees people as tools rather than lives. Kale stood, extending a hand to help Nora up. When she took it, that same electric shock ran through her, the bond pulling them together. I need you to help me, Nora. I need your gift. If the wild wolves trust you, if the primordial spoke to you, then you are the key to understanding what is happening. You can communicate with the wolves in ways I cannot. You can find answers that would take my warriors weeks to uncover. You want me to spy for you. I want you to be yourself, to use your gift for its true purpose, to bridge the gap between our world and theirs. He paused, his expression softening slightly. And I want you safe, which you will not be if you stay here. The Silverwood Pack has made it clear how they view you. I am taking you back to Blackthorn territory with me. As my mate, as my whisperer, as someone under my direct protection. Nora's heart stuttered. You cannot just claim me. I do not even know you. The bond does not mean I belong to you like property. No, Kale agreed. It does not, which is why I am asking, not commanding. Will you come with me, Nora? Will you help me stop whoever is creating these ferals before more innocent people die? What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below. Nora wanted to say no, wanted to refuse out of principle. But the truth was, she had nothing here. No home worth keeping, no friends to leave behind. Just a lifetime of scorn and isolation. And there was something else. Something she could not quite name. When she looked at Kale, when she felt the bond humming between them, she felt a pull toward destiny, toward purpose. toward becoming something more than the broken Omega everyone believed her to be. "I will help you," she said finally. "But I have conditions." Cale's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Name them." "I want my own space, not to be locked in a room like a prisoner or a treasure to be guarded. I want freedom to move, to work, to use my gift as I see fit. And I want your word that you will not try to force the mate bond. That if I decide it is not what I want, you will respect that decision." The almost smile faded. Cale looked at her with something like respect. "Agreed. On all counts. Though I hope in time you will choose the bond of your own free will." "We will see," Nora said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "There is one more thing you should know before we leave. Tonight there is to be a ceremony, the moon ritual, where I formally announce my alliance with the Silverwood Pack and present my chosen mate to my people." Nora's stomach dropped. "Your chosen mate. You already have someone." "I have a political arrangement," Cale corrected. "Lady Vivian of the Shadowmere Pack. A brilliant strategist, a powerful wolf, and absolutely the wrong woman for me in every way that matters. But our union would have secured the southern borders and brought 3 allied packs into my coalition." "Would have?" "The mate bond supersedes all other commitments. No one can fault me for following the moon goddess's will. But Vivian is not going to take the rejection well. She has been planning our union for 2 years, and she is not someone who accepts defeat gracefully." Nora felt a chill run down her spine. "You are saying she will come after me. I am saying I will protect you. But yes, you should be prepared for hostility. Vivian has many allies and many resources, and she considers you an obstacle to be removed. This keeps getting better and better," Nora muttered. Kyle surprised her by laughing, actually laughing. The sound transformed his face, making him look younger, less burdened. "Welcome to the world of alpha politics, little whisperer. Nothing is ever simple, but I promise you this. Whatever comes, whatever challenges we face, you will not face them alone. Not anymore." He held out his hand again. After a moment's hesitation, Nora took it. The bond flared between them, warm and bright and terrifying. "Come," Cale said. "We have preparations to make, and you need proper clothing. You cannot attend a moon ritual dressed like a refugee." Nora looked down at her blood-stained, torn clothes. "I have nothing better than this. Everything I own would fit in a single bag." Cale's expression darkened. "That ends now. You are to be my queen, my mate, my equal. You will be dressed accordingly." Queen. The word hung in the air like an impossible dream. Nora, who had never been anything, was being offered everything. It was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. But as Cale led her from the study, his hand warm and solid around hers, Nora felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. Maybe she was not broken. Maybe she was not a mistake. Maybe, just maybe, there was a reason she had survived when everyone else had died. A reason she could speak to wolves when no one else could. A reason the moon goddess had made her different. Maybe different was not a curse. Maybe it was a gift she had just been waiting her whole life to unwrap. The next few hours passed in a blur. Nora was swept into a world of luxury and efficiency she had never imagined. Cale's attendants descended on her with the focused intensity of an invading army. She was bathed in water that actually ran hot, her hair washed with products that smelled like wildflowers and moonlight. Someone cleaned and dressed her wounds with expert care. Someone else filed her ragged nails and applied oils to her calloused hands. Through it all, Nora felt like she was watching herself from outside her body. This could not be real. This could not be happening to her. But it was. When they finally let her see herself in a full-length mirror, Nora did not recognize the woman staring back. The dress was midnight blue, the color of the sky just before true darkness falls. It hugged her curves in ways her shapeless work clothes never had, making her look feminine and powerful at once. Her dark hair, usually tangled and ignored, fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Someone had applied cosmetics with a light hand, enhancing her green eyes, making her lips look fuller. She looked like someone important, someone worth noticing, someone who belonged in a palace instead of a shack. "Beautiful," a voice said from the doorway. Nora turned to find Cale watching her, his silver eyes intense. He had changed as well, now wearing formal attire in black and silver, his hair pulled back, his presence somehow even more commanding than before. "I feel like an imposter," Nora admitted, "like I am playing dress-up in someone else's life." Kyle crossed to her, taking both her hands in his. "You are exactly where you are meant to be. Trust me. Trust the bond. Trust yourself." Before Nora could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. A woman entered without waiting for permission, and Nora knew immediately who she was. Lady Vivian was stunning. Tall and elegant, with golden hair and amber eyes, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Nora's entire former existence. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never been denied anything in her life. Those amber eyes fixed on Nora with naked hostility. "So, this is the obstacle," Vivian said, her voice smooth as poisoned honey. "The little Omega without a wolf. How very inconvenient for you, Cale. Claiming a mate bond with someone so clearly beneath you." "Careful, Vivian," Cale said quietly. "You are speaking about my mate, my queen, the woman the moon. Goddess herself has chosen for me. Show respect or leave." Vivian laughed, but there was nothing amused about the sound. "Respect? For this nobody? This freak who talks to animals? Please. Everyone knows this is a mistake. The bond is obviously corrupted somehow, perhaps by whatever dark magic allows her to control wild wolves." "There is no dark magic," Nora said, finding her voice. "Just a gift you do not understand because you are too narrow-minded to see past your own ambitions." Vivian's eyes flashed. For a moment, Nora thought the other woman might actually attack her. But Cale stepped between them, his body language making it clear he would tolerate no violence. "This conversation is over," he said. "Vivian, you have two choices. Accept the situation with grace and maintain your alliance with my kingdom, or reject it and face the consequences of becoming my enemy. Choose wisely." Vivian's beautiful face twisted with fury. "This is not over, Cale. Not even close. You think you can just discard me like yesterday's news? You think there will not be repercussions? My father controls the Southern Passage. My allies number in the dozens. You need me." "I need stability in the South," Cale corrected. "Whether that comes through alliance or conquest is entirely up to you." The threat hung in the air, undeniable. Vivian looked between Cale and Nora, her expression calculating. Then she smiled, and it was the kind of smile that promised retribution. "Very well. I will attend your little ceremony. I will watch you claim your broken Omega. And I will wait. Because bonds can be broken, Kyle. Even mate bonds. Especially bonds that should never have formed in the first place." She swept from the room, leaving a wake of expensive perfume and menace. Nora let out a breath she had not known she was holding. "She is going to try to kill me." "Undoubtedly," Cale agreed. "But she will fail. I will not allow anything to happen to you, Nora. I swear it on my crown. On my life. On everything I am." He cupped her face in his hands. "You are more important than any alliance, more valuable than any strategic advantage. You are my mate, and I protect what is mine." The possessiveness should have bothered her, should have made her bristle and pull away. But instead, Nora felt a warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time in her life, someone was claiming her, choosing her, fighting for her. It was overwhelming and wonderful, and terrifying all at once. "The ceremony begins in an hour," Cale said softly. "Are you ready?" "No," Nora answered honestly. "But I will do it anyway." Cale smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. That is the spirit of a true queen. He offered his arm, and Nora took it. Together, they walked toward whatever awaited them, toward a future that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The moon ritual was held in a sacred grove deep in the forest, a place where ancient trees formed a natural cathedral and moonlight filtered through the leaves like silver rain. By the time Nora and Cale arrived, hundreds of wolves had already gathered. Pack members from Silverwood, warriors from Blackthorn, representatives from allied packs, all there to witness the Alpha King's announcement. Nora felt their eyes on her like physical weight, heard the whispers that followed her every step. That is her? She does not look like much. No wolf. Can you believe it? What is the king thinking? Cale's hand tightened on hers, a silent reminder that she was not alone. They made their way to the center of the grove, where a raised platform had been erected. Alpha Garrett was already there, looking uncomfortable. Vivian stood off to one side, her expression carefully neutral, surrounded by her own contingent of supporters. Cale stepped onto the platform, pulling Nora up beside him. The crowd fell silent immediately, every eye fixed on their king. "My people," Cale began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the eye. "Gathering. I come before you tonight to fulfill two purposes. First, to address the threat that has been plaguing our territories. The rogue attacks are not random. They are calculated acts of war perpetrated by an enemy who seeks to destabilize our kingdoms through the creation and deployment of feral wolves." A murmur ran through the crowd. Kyle raised a hand for silence. "I have dispatched my best trackers to locate the source of these ferals. We will find those responsible, and we will end this threat. But to do so, I need unity. I need every pack working together, sharing information, pooling resources. Division makes us vulnerable. Unity makes us unstoppable." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Which brings me to the second purpose of tonight's gathering. The moon goddess has blessed me with a gift I did not expect. A mate bond, true and pure, with a woman who embodies everything our people should aspire to be. Strength in adversity, grace under pressure, power that flows. From connection rather than domination." He turned to Nora, his silver eyes bright with something that looked almost like pride. "Nora is a whisperer, a bloodline from the first alphas. She carries a gift that allows her to bridge the gap between our world and the wild wolves who share our forests. In a time when enemies seek to turn wolves into weapons, her ability to communicate with and understand them is invaluable. She is not weak because she lacks a traditional wolf form. She is powerful, in ways we have forgotten how to be." Cale took Nora's hand, raising it high. "I claim Nora as my mate before the moon goddess and all witnesses gathered here. I declare her my queen, my equal, my partner in all things. Any who wish to challenge this bond may speak now." The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, from the edge of the gathering, a figure stepped forward. Old. Ancient, really. A woman with white hair and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of knowledge. Robes marked with symbols Nora did not recognize. "I am Oracle Thea of the Northern Covenant," the woman announced, "and I have words for this gathering." Cale inclined his head respectfully. Oracles were rare, their visions considered sacred. To dismiss one was to invite the moon goddess's wrath. "Speak, honored Oracle." Thea's eyes fixed on Nora, and the intensity of that gaze made her want to step back. The whisperer carries the blood of the first pack, the ones who walked beside the Wan, primordials before the Great Sundering. She is the key to a prophecy spoken 1,000 years ago. When the wolves forget their nature and turn against themselves, when corruption spreads through the packs like poison, the whisperer will rise. She will stand between the wild and the tame, the past and the future. She will either unite the wolves or watch them destroy each other. The oracle's voice grew stronger, taking on an otherworldly quality. The bond between king and whisperer is not chance. It is destiny. Fight it, and you fight the will of the moon goddess herself. Embrace it, and you may yet save what remains of our kind. She turned her ancient eyes on Vivian. Those who would break what the goddess has joined will find only ruin. Heed this warning, child of ambition. Your path leads to darkness, unless you choose different. Vivian's face had gone pale, but her jaw was set. She said nothing. Oracle Thea nodded once, then melted back into the crowd, disappearing as mysteriously as she had appeared. The silence that followed was heavy with significance. Then, slowly, wolves began to kneel. First one, then another, then dozens, hundreds, until the entire gathering was on their knees before Nora and Kale. "Long live the Alpha King," someone called out. "Long live the Whisperer Queen." Another voice joined in. The chant built, growing louder, more fervent. Nora stood frozen, overwhelmed by the display. These were the same people who had scorned her hours ago. The same pack that had locked her in a basement and called her traitor. And now they knelt before her. "Accept their loyalty," Kale murmured in her ear. "They are offering you something precious. Do not throw it back in their faces." Nora took a shaky breath and raised her free hand. "Rise," she said, her voice smaller than she would have liked. "Please, rise." They obeyed, and Nora saw the beginning of something in their eyes. Not quite respect yet, but possibility. The ceremony continued with traditional rituals. Kyle and Nora were bound together with cords woven from silver thread and moonflower vines. They drank from a shared cup of ceremonial wine. They spoke vows that had been spoken by countless mates before them. Through it all, Nora felt the bond growing stronger, more solid, more real. And when Kale kissed her to seal their union, when his lips met hers for the first time, the world exploded into sensation. The bond snapped into place fully, completely, irrevocably. Nora felt Kale's emotions flooding through her, his determination, his protectiveness, his desire, and underneath it all, a growing affection that terrified her with its intensity. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the crowd erupted in cheers, but Nora barely heard them. She was too focused on the feeling of being connected to someone for the first time in her life, of not being alone. If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. The celebration that followed was elaborate. Food and drink flowed freely. Music played. Wolves danced and laughed and celebrated their king's good fortune. Nora sat beside Kyle at the high table, trying to process everything that had happened, trying to understand how her life had been completely transformed in less than 24 hours. "You are quiet," Kale observed. "Overwhelmed," Nora admitted. "Yesterday I was nobody. Today I am a queen. It does not feel real." "It is real," Kale assured her. "But I understand the feeling. When I first took the throne after my father's death, I spent weeks convinced I would wake up and discover it was all a dream." He took her hand under the table, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. "But this is not a dream, Nora. This is your new reality, and you are going to be magnificent." Before Nora could respond, a commotion at the edge of the clearing drew everyone's attention. The guards stationed at the perimeter were shouting warnings. Something was approaching. Something big. The celebration died instantly. Warriors moved to defensive positions. Kale rose, pulling Nora behind him protectively. Then, out of the darkness, they came. Wolves. Dozens of them. Wild wolves, their eyes reflecting the firelight, their bodies tense and ready. But they were not attacking. They were escorting something. Someone. The crowd parted like water, fear and confusion rippling through the gathering. And then Nora saw what the wolves were protecting. The black primordial. The one she had healed that morning. It walked slowly, still injured but moving with undeniable authority. And it was not alone. Beside it walked another massive wolf, this one silver-white with eyes like starlight, and another, russet red with amber eyes. 3 primordials, 3 wolves that should not exist. They approached the platform, and every shifter there felt the weight of their presence. These were not just animals. They were something ancient, something powerful, something that demanded respect on a primal level that went deeper than pack law or royal authority. The black primordial looked directly at Nora, and once again, she heard that voice in her mind. Not words, impressions, gratitude, recognition, purpose. "You healed our brother," the voice communicated. "You showed kindness when you had no obligation to do so. You are worthy of the gift you carry, worthy of the bond you have claimed. And so we offer you this, our protection, our alliance, our recognition of what you are." The 3 primordials bowed their massive heads. The wild wolves that had accompanied them followed suit. It was a gesture of submission and respect so profound that several shifters gasped. Nora stepped forward slowly, moving past Cale despite his protective instincts. She approached the primordials, her heart pounding but her feet steady. When she reached the black wolf, she placed her hand on its head. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trusting me, for seeing me when no one else would, for being here." The primordial pressed into her touch, and Nora felt a rush of emotion so intense it brought tears to her eyes. Acceptance, belonging, home. "The wild ones accept the Whisperer Queen," the voice said, and this time Nora was certain everyone could hear it. "Let it be known across all territories. Those who harm her will answer to us. Those who protect her earn our favor. This is the old law. This is the true way." The primordials turned and disappeared, back into the forest, the wild wolves following. Within moments, it was as if they had never been there, except for the paw prints pressed into the earth, except for the witnesses who would carry this story for the rest of their lives. Nora turned back to face the gathering, and she saw something shift in their eyes. Fear had transformed into awe. Skepticism had become belief. She was not just an Omega without a wolf anymore. She was the Whisperer Queen, acknowledged by the primordials themselves, blessed by the oldest magic in their world. Cale was smiling when she returned to his side. "Well," he said quietly, "I think that settled any remaining doubts about your worthiness." "I did not ask for this," Nora murmured. "No," Cale agreed. "The moon goddess does not ask. She simply knows what we need before we do." He raised his voice to address the crowd. "You have witnessed something unprecedented tonight. The primordials, who we thought were extinct, have revealed themselves. They have acknowledged my mate, my queen, as one of their own. This is a sign, a promise, that if we can bridge the gap between wild and tame, between past and future, we can overcome any threat. Together, we are unstoppable." The crowd erupted in cheers again, but this time there was real enthusiasm behind it, real hope. The celebration resumed, louder and more joyous than before. But Nora's mind was racing. She had been accepted by the primordials, protected by them. But she also knew that acceptance came with responsibility. They expected her to be the bridge oracle Thea had spoken of, to unite wolves who had been divided for centuries. The weight of that expectation should have crushed her. Instead, for the first time in her life, Nora felt like she had a purpose, a reason for being different, a reason for surviving when others had died. As the moon climbed higher in the sky and the celebration continued around them, Cale leaned close to Nora. "Are you ready to leave? We have a long journey back to Blackthorn territory tomorrow. You should rest." Nora looked around the grove one last time, at the pack that had rejected her, at the warriors who had bound her in silver, at the future that stretched before her, uncertain and challenging and terrifying. "Yes," she said. "I am ready." Cale led her away from the celebration, toward the guest quarters that had been prepared for them. But as they walked, Nora felt eyes on her back. When she turned, she saw Vivian watching. From across the clearing, the other woman's expression was unreadable, But Nora felt a chill run down her spine. The ceremony might be over, the bond might be sealed, but the real battle was just beginning, and Nora had a feeling that before this was all over, she would need every ounce of strength she possessed, every ally she could gather, every gift the moon goddess had given her. The guest quarters were luxurious by any standard, but especially compared to Nora's former cabin. A large bed with silk sheets, a fireplace already burning, windows that overlook the forest. Kyle closed the door behind them, and suddenly, they were alone. Truly alone. The bond hummed between them, stronger now after the ceremony. Nora could feel Cale's presence like a second heartbeat, could sense his emotions, his desires, his careful restraint. "I will sleep on the floor," Cale said, reading her discomfort. "Or in the chair. Whatever makes you most comfortable." I meant what I said about not forcing. This. Nora appreciated that more than she could say, but she also felt the pull of the bond, the desire to be close to him, to understand this connection that had been thrust upon them. "The bed is large enough for both of us," she heard herself say, "if you promise to stay on your side." Kyle smiled. "I promise." They prepared for sleep in awkward silence, both hyper-aware of the other. When they finally lay down, separated by what felt like miles of mattress, Nora could not relax. Every nerve in her body was attuned to Cale's presence. "Tell me about yourself," she said into the darkness. "I am mated to a stranger. I should at least know something about you beyond the title." Cale was quiet for a moment. Then he began to speak, his deep voice soothing in the dark. "I became Alpha King at 19, when my father was killed in a border dispute. I was not ready. I made mistakes. People died because of my inexperience. But I learned. I grew stronger. I built alliances. I created stability where there had been chaos." He paused. "I have been alone for a long time, Nora. Surrounded by people, but truly alone. No one sees past the crown. No one dares to challenge me or question me or treat me like anything other than a king. It gets exhausting." "I know about being alone," Nora said softly. "About being surrounded by people who do not see you." "I see you," Kyle said. "I have seen you from the moment you walked into that study with your chin up and your eyes defiant. I saw someone who refused to be diminished by the opinions of others. Someone strong enough to survive years of rejection and still have compassion left to give. That is why the bond chose us, Nora, because we understand what it means to stand alone. And maybe together, we will not have to anymore." Nora felt tears prick her eyes. She had spent so long building walls around her heart, protecting herself from further pain. But Cale's words were dismantling those walls brick by brick. "I am scared," she admitted. "Of this, of us, of what people will expect from me. I do not know how to be a queen." "You already are one," Cale said. "You just do not know it yet. Being a queen is not about wearing crowns and sitting on thrones. It is about standing up when everyone else falls down. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It is about using whatever gifts you have been given to make the world better. Even when the world has not been kind to you. You have been doing that your entire life." Nora turned toward him, though she could barely see his face in the darkness. "What if I fail? What if I am not strong enough? Then you will get back up and try again. And I will be beside you the entire time, helping you find your feet. That is what mates do, Nora. We do not have to face the world alone anymore." The words settled something inside her, soothed some deep fear she had carried for as long as she could remember. Slowly, carefully, Nora reached across the divide between them. Her hand found Cale's in the darkness. He threaded his fingers through hers, and the bond flared bright and warm. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for choosing me, even when you did not have a choice." "I would have chosen you anyway," Kyle said. "Bond or no bond. The moon goddess just made it official." They fell asleep like that, hands clasped, the bond settling into something comfortable and right. And for the first time in her life, Nora did not feel alone. She woke to early morning light and the sound of urgent voices outside the door. Kyle was already up, dressed, his expression grim. "What is wrong?" Nora asked, sitting up. "Scouts just returned from the eastern border," Kyle said. "There has been another attack. A small settlement, completely destroyed. But this time, survivors reported seeing someone commanding the ferals. A woman with dark hair and eyes like ice. Someone who called herself the Feral Queen." Nora's blood ran cold. "They have a leader. The ferals are not just weapons. They are an army. And their queen just declared war," Kale confirmed. He looked at Nora, and she saw the weight of responsibility settling back onto his shoulders. "We need to leave immediately. Get back to Blackthorn territory where I can coordinate a proper response, where I can keep you safe." "I am not hiding," Nora said firmly. "If there is a feral queen creating monsters, then you need the Whisperer Queen to counter her. You said it yourself. My gift is valuable. So use it. Let me help." Kyle looked like he wanted to argue, but then he nodded. "Very well. But you stay close to me. Always. No wandering off, no taking unnecessary risks. Agreed?" "Agreed." They gathered their things quickly and joined the convoy forming in the courtyard. Dozens of warriors, all preparing to return to Blackthorn territory. Nora saw Vivian among them, her expression cold as she watched Nora approach. "Leaving so soon?" Vivian asked sweetly. "I was hoping we would have more time to get acquainted." "War does not wait for social niceties," Kale replied curtly. "The Feral Queen has made her first move. We need to respond before she strikes again." "The Feral Queen," Vivian mused. "How dramatic. Though I suppose in a world where we have Whisperer Queens and Primordials, anything is possible." There was something in her tone that made Nora's instincts prickle. Something wrong. But before she could identify it, Kale was ushering her toward a vehicle. They departed within the hour, the convoy moving quickly through the forest. Nora watched the Silverwood territory disappear behind them with mixed feelings. She was leaving the only home she had ever known, however unwelcoming it had been. Heading toward an uncertain future with a mate she barely knew. But she was also leaving behind the weight of rejection, the constant scrutiny, the feeling of being less than. Whatever waited for her in Blackthorn territory, it could not be worse than what she was leaving behind. They traveled for hours, the convoy moving in tight formation. Kyle sat beside Nora, occasionally squeezing her hand in reassurance. They did not speak much. There was too much to say, and no way to say it with so many ears listening. As the sun began to set, they entered Blackthorn territory. Nora felt the change immediately. The air felt different here, charged with power. This was the heart of the Northern Territories, the seat of the Alpha King's power. The pack house was not a house at all. It was a fortress. Massive stone walls, guard towers, defenses that could withstand an army. Inside, it was equally impressive. Rich tapestries, polished marble floors, the wealth and power of centuries on display. Wolves stopped and stared as Kale led Nora through the corridors. Word of the new queen had traveled fast, and everyone wanted a glimpse of the woman their king had claimed. Nora held her head high, refusing to show how overwhelmed she felt. Kale brought her to a suite of rooms that took her breath away. A sitting area. A bedroom with a bed that could fit 5 people. A bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in. "This is yours," Kyle said. "Your private space, as promised. My rooms are connected through that door, but I will not enter without permission." He paused. "I need to meet with my council, discuss our response to the Feral Queen. Will you be all right here? I can assign guards if you would feel safer." "I will be fine," Nora assured him. "Go. Do what you need to do. I will explore a bit, get my bearings." Kyle hesitated, then pulled her close for a brief, intense kiss. When he released her, they were both breathing hard. "I will return as soon as I can," he promised. "Do not leave these rooms without an escort. I do not trust Vivian or her allies not to try something. I will be careful." After Cale left, Nora stood in the center of the opulent rooms and tried to process everything. She moved to the window, looking out over the sprawling pack grounds. This was her life now. These were her people. This was her home. The thought was dizzying. A soft sound made her turn. A small gray cat sat in the doorway, watching her with intelligent green eyes. Nora smiled despite herself. "Hello there. How did you get in?" The cat meowed and trotted over, winding around her ankles. Nora bent to stroke its soft fur, feeling some of her tension ease. Animals had always been her comfort, her refuge. "You can stay if you want," she told the cat. "I could use the company." The cat purred, seeming to understand. Nora settled into a chair, the cat in her lap, and allowed herself to simply breathe. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. But tonight, she would rest, would let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found a place where she belonged. Hours later, Cale still had not returned. Nora had bathed, changed into a soft nightgown she found in the wardrobe, and tried to relax. But restlessness drove her to the door. She knew Cale had told her to stay put, but she was not a prisoner. She was a queen. She could walk her own halls. The corridors were quiet, most pack members already asleep. Nora wandered, taking in the architecture, the art, the sheer scale of the place. She turned a corner and found herself in a gallery lined with portraits. Alpha kings of the past, each more imposing than the last. She stopped before a painting of a young man who looked remarkably like Cale. His father, she realized. The resemblance was striking. "Admiring the family tree?" a voice said behind her. Nora spun to find Vivian leaning against the wall, a wine glass in her hand. She looked casual, relaxed, but there was nothing relaxed about the way she watched Nora. "Just exploring," Nora said carefully. "I did not mean to intrude." "Oh, you are not intruding. This is your home now, after all. At least until Cale comes to his senses and realizes what a mistake he has made." Vivian took a sip of wine. "Tell me, Whisperer Queen, do you really think you can hold his interest? A girl with no wolf, no training, no understanding of how to navigate pack politics? You are a novelty, a curiosity, but novelties wear off. The mate bond is not a novelty," Nora said quietly. "It is real. It is forever. And no amount of scheming on your part will change that." Vivian's eyes flashed. "You are right. The bond is real. But bonds can be complicated, especially when one half of the bond meets with an unfortunate accident." The threat hung in the air, undeniable. Nora's heart raced, but she refused to back down. "If you threaten me again, I will tell Cale, and I do not think he will be pleased." "Tell him," Vivian said with a shrug. "He will assign you more guards. Lock you in a gilded cage. Is that really the life you want? Always looking over your shoulder? Always wondering when I will strike?" She stepped closer. "Or you could leave, voluntarily. Reject the bond. You made a mistake. I will ensure you are well compensated. A cottage somewhere quiet. Enough money to live comfortably. All you have to do is walk away." "I am not walking away," Nora said firmly. "I know what you are, Vivian. You are scared. Scared that for the first time in your life, your beauty and your connections and your manipulations are not enough. Scared that Cale chose someone real over someone perfect. And that terrifies you." Vivian's mask slipped. For just a moment, Nora saw pure rage in those amber eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by a cold smile. "We will see who is scared when this is over, little Omega. We will see who is left standing." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Nora stood there, shaking, until she heard footsteps approaching from the other direction. Kyle appeared, his expression thunderous. I saw Vivian leaving this wing. Did she threaten you? Nora considered lying, considered trying to handle this herself. But she had promised Cale honesty. Yes, she offered me money to leave. When I refused, she made it clear that accidents could be arranged. Cale's eyes flashed silver, his wolf rising to the surface. I will exile her. Tonight. I will not tolerate threats against my mate. No, Nora said, surprising herself. If you exile her, she becomes a martyr. Her allies rally around her. She becomes more dangerous, not less. Keep her close, where we can watch her, where she has to be subtle instead of... Cale stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. You see? This is why you will make a brilliant queen. You think strategically, even when you are frightened. He pulled her close, and Nora melted into his embrace. I am sorry I was gone so long. The council meeting ran late. We are implementing new defenses, increasing patrols. The feral queen will not find easy targets here. What do we know about her? Nora asked. Very little. She appeared 6 months ago, seemingly from nowhere. She has the ability to control ferals, which should be impossible. And she seems to have a personal vendetta against organized packs, particularly mine. Kyle stroked Nora's hair absently. My spies are working to track her down, but she is careful, smart, always one step ahead. I could help, Nora offered. If the wild wolves know something, if they have seen her, I could ask them. It is too dangerous, Kyle said immediately. If she found out you were searching for her, she would target you. She is probably going to target me anyway. I am your mate, your weakness. Nora pulled back to look at him. Let me use my gift, Cale. Let me be part of the solution instead of something you have to protect. Cale looked torn. Finally, he nodded. We will discuss it with the council tomorrow. See what intelligence we already have. Then decide on the safest way to proceed. It was not a yes, but it was not a no either. Nora would take it. Cale led her back to her rooms, and this time when they lay down together, there was no awkwardness, just the comfort of the bond and the warmth of being close. Nora drifted off to sleep, feeling safer than she had ever felt in her life. And that was when the dreams began. She was running through the forest, but it was not the forest she knew. The trees were twisted, wrong. The moon above was blood red, and behind her, gaining with every step, was a woman with dark hair and eyes like chips of ice. The feral queen. She was laughing as she chased Nora, her voice echoing through the corrupted woods. You cannot hide from me, little whisperer. I know what you are. I know what you can become, and I will destroy you before you have the chance to stop me. Nora ran faster, her lungs burning, her legs aching. But there was nowhere to go. No escape. The feral queen was faster, stronger, unstoppable. Just as cold hands were about to close around Nora's throat, she woke with a gasp. Cale was beside her instantly, pulling her close. Nightmare? He asked gently. More than a nightmare, Nora whispered. A warning. The days that followed established a new rhythm. Nora trained with Cale's warriors, learning to defend herself despite her lack of wolf form. She met with the council, offering insights about wild wolf behavior that helped them understand the ferals better. And she began cautiously reaching out to the wild wolves in the territory, building a network of information that proved invaluable. Through it all, the bond with Cale grew stronger. They learned each other's habits, preferences, fears. They learned to communicate without words, to sense each other's moods. And slowly, carefully, they fell in love. Not because the bond demanded it, but because they chose it. But the feral queen remained elusive. Every lead went cold. Every trap came up empty. And Nora's dreams grew worse, more vivid, more specific. She began to suspect they were not just dreams, but visions. The feral queen was reaching out, taunting her promising destruction. 1 month after her arrival at Blackthorn territory, everything changed. Nora was in the gardens, tending to some injured rabbits when she felt it. A presence. Familiar, yet twisted. Wrong. She looked up to find wild wolves emerging from the tree line. But these were not the healthy, vibrant creatures she usually encountered. These were sick, corrupted. Their eyes were clouded, their movements jerky and unnatural. Ferals. They had breached the defenses. And they were coming straight for her. Nora scrambled backward, calling out for help, but the gardens were deserted. Everyone was at the training grounds on the other side of the compound. The ferals advanced, snarling, foam dripping from their jaws. Nora tried to connect with them the way she connected with wild wolves, but there was nothing to connect to. Whatever had been wolf in them was gone, burned out by whatever process had created them. She was going to die. Here in the gardens, she had begun to think of as peaceful, alone and defenseless. Then, from the forest behind the ferals, came a sound that made her heart leap. Howls. Not the twisted sounds of ferals, the pure, clear calls of wild wolves. The primordials burst from the trees, the black one in the lead. With them came dozens of wild wolves, all moving with coordinated precision. They fell on the ferals like a force of nature, driving them back, protecting Nora with their own bodies. The fight was brutal and short. Within minutes, the ferals lay dead or dying, no match for the primordial's ancient power. The black primordial approached Nora, nuzzling her gently. She wrapped her arms around its massive neck, shaking with relief and adrenaline. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for coming." The voice in her mind was warm. "We protect our own little sister. Always." By the time Kale and his warriors arrived, weapons drawn and faces grim, the threat was over. Kale took one look at the scene, the dead ferals, the wild wolves, surrounding Nora protectively, and something shifted in his expression. "She sent them after you specifically," he said. "The feral queen. This was not a random attack. This was assassination." "I know," Nora said quietly. "And it is only going to get worse. We need to find her, Kyle. We need to end this before she builds an army we cannot stop." Kale looked at the primordials, then back at Nora. "You have an idea. The primordials know things, ancient things. If anyone knows how to track the feral queen, how to understand what she is and where she came from, it is them. Let me work with them. Let me find the answers we need." Kale was silent for a long moment. Then he knelt before her, ignoring the shocked gasps from his warriors. "I am terrified of losing you," he said honestly. "But I trust you. I trust your gift. And I trust that the moon goddess brought us together for a reason." He looked up at her, his silver eyes intense. "Find her, Nora. Find the feral queen. And we will stop her, together." Nora helped him to his feet, and in front of all the assembled wolves, she kissed him, claiming him as publicly as he had claimed her. "Together," she agreed. "Always together." What followed was the most intensive period of Nora's life. She spent days in the forest with the primordials, learning to deepen her connection with them, learning the history they carried. The black primordial, whose name she learned was Shadow, showed her visions of the past, of a time before shifters, when wolves and humans lived in balance, of the first whisperers, who could walk between both worlds, and of the great sundering when something went wrong, when some humans tried to force the wolf bond instead of earning it, creating the first ferals, creatures of pain and madness. The feral queen uses the old magic, Shadow communicated, the forbidden magic. She has found texts that should have been destroyed. She knows secrets that should have been forgotten. Where did she come from? Nora asked. What does she want? The vision shifted, showing her a young woman, beautiful, powerful, rejected by her mate in favor of a political alliance. The woman's face twisted with rage and hurt. She fled into the wilderness, seeking power to make her mate regret his choice. And there, in the darkest corners of the ancient forest, she found it. She was like you once, Shadow said, cast aside, deemed unworthy. But where you chose compassion, she chose vengeance. Bridges, she burned them. She is what you could have become if you had let bitterness consume you. The revelation shook Nora to her core. The Feral Queen was not some distant monster. She was a woman who had suffered similar pain and chosen a different path. How do we stop her? Nora asked. The same way you do everything, little sister. With connection. With understanding. The Ferals are not lost. Not completely. Deep inside, buried under the corruption, a spark of what they were remains. If you can reach that spark, you can free them. And without her army, the Feral Queen is just a woman. Powerful, but no longer unstoppable. Nora returned to the pack house with a plan. She gathered Kale and the council and laid out what she had learned. The Feral Queen is creating an army because she is alone, Nora explained. Because she was rejected, and she wants the world to feel her pain. But her power relies on the Ferals remaining mindless. If I can reach them, remind them of what they were, the entire structure collapses. You want to try to heal Ferals? One council member said skeptically. That has never been done. The transformation is considered irreversible. Because no one with my gift has tried, Nora countered. I can communicate with wild wolves. I can sense their emotions, their needs. Ferals are corrupted shifters, yes, but they were wolves once. And I think I can reach that part of them. It is too dangerous, another council member argued. If you fail, if the Ferals overwhelm you, we lose our queen. And if we do nothing, the Feral Queen builds her army until it is unstoppable, and we lose everything, Nora shot back. She looked at Kale. I need you to trust me. I need you to believe that the moon goddess gave me this gift for a reason. This is it. This is why I am here. Kale stood, and the room fell silent. My mate makes a compelling argument, and she has proven herself time and again. I say we give her a chance, but not alone. We capture a feral. Bring it here, to controlled conditions. Let Nora attempt her healing with guards and protections in place. If it works, we know we have a weapon against the Feral Queen. If it does not, we lose only one enemy combatant. The council murmured agreement. Within days, they had captured a feral. A young male who had been turned recently enough that some of his features were still recognizable. They kept him sedated in a reinforced cell in the depths of the fortress. When Nora entered the cell, accompanied by Kyle and a dozen guards, she felt the corruption radiating from the feral like heat from a fire. It was nauseating, wrong on every level. The feral lunged at her, but the chains held. It snarled and snapped, all mindless rage. Nora approached slowly, keeping her movements calm and unthreatening. She began to hum. The same sound she used with wild wolves, the sound that meant safety, comfort, home. At first, nothing happened. The feral continued to struggle, to fight. Nora persisted. She hummed and she reached out with her gift, searching for any spark of consciousness beneath the corruption. And then, impossibly, she found it. Just a flicker. A tiny piece of the person this feral had been. She latched onto it, pouring everything she had into that connection, showing the feral memories of pack, of family, of being loved and valued, of being more than a weapon. The feral's struggles began to slow. Its snarls became whimpers. And then, with a sound that was half howl, half scream, something shifted. The cloudiness began to clear from its eyes. The twisted features began to relax. It was not a complete healing. The damage was too extensive. But it was progress. Proof of concept. The feral looked at Nora with something approaching recognition, approaching gratitude. What is your name? Nora whispered. The feral's mouth moved, forming words it had not spoken in months. Ash. My name is Ash. The cell erupted in shocked exclamations. Back. Cale, his expression
Nora.
a mixture of amazement and fear. You did it. You actually did it. I started it, Nora corrected. But Ash needs time. Healing. He may never be fully what he was, but he is not lost. None of them are. She looked at Cale. We can save them. All of them. And in doing so, we can take away the Feral Queen's power. Then we need to find her, Cale said, before she realizes what you can do and comes for you in force. As if summoned by his words, an alarm began to blare. Warriors rushed into the cell, their faces grim. Your Majesty, one gasped. The borders are under attack. Hundreds of ferals, more than we have ever seen in one place. And she is with them, the Feral Queen. She is demanding to speak with the Whisperer. She says if Nora does not come out, she will raze the entire territory to the ground. Nora and Cale's eyes met. This was it. The confrontation they had both known was coming. I will not let you face her alone, Cale said. I know, Nora replied. But I will face her, because I am the only one who can end this. They armed themselves and moved to the fortress walls. Below, spreading across the fields like a plague, were ferals. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. All standing eerily still. And in front of them, mounted on a massive corrupted wolf, was a woman. The Feral Queen. She was beautiful, Nora realized with a shock. Young. Perhaps not much older than Nora herself. But her eyes were ancient with pain and madness. Whisperer. Queen, the Feral Queen called out, her voice carrying easily across the distance. I have heard so much about you. The girl who speaks to wolves. The girl who healed instead of hurting. The girl who found her mate when I lost mine. My name is Nora, Nora called back. And I know your pain. I know what it is to be rejected. To be told you are not enough. To watch the person you love choose duty over you. The Feral Queen's expression twisted. You know nothing. You found your happy ending. Your Alpha King chose you. Mine threw me away like garbage for a woman with better connections. So I made myself more powerful than any connection. More terrifying than any alliance. And now he will watch as I destroy everything he built. Is that what you want? Nora asked. Revenge? Destruction? Or do you want what I wanted? To be seen, to be valued, to matter. The Feral Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed, and the sound was broken. It is too late for me. I went too far. Down this path. I turned myself into a monster to gain power, and now I cannot turn back. But you, Whisperer, you can still be broken, and I will enjoy breaking you. She raised her hand, and the ferals surged forward. Hundreds of corrupted wolves charging the fortress walls. The battle that followed was chaos. Cale's warriors fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. For every feral they brought down, 2 more took its place. Nora stood on the walls, her mind racing. She could not heal them. All. Not in time. Not in the middle of a battle. But maybe she did not have to heal them. Maybe she just had to remind them. She opened herself completely to her gift. Reached out not to one feral but to all of them. Found those tiny sparks of consciousness and fanned them into flames. She showed them who they had been. Who they could be again. Showed them that they were not weapons. Not monsters. They were wolves. They were people. They deserved better than this half-life of pain and madness. The effect was not immediate. But slowly, ferals began to stop. To look around in confusion. To remember. The Feral Queen felt her control slipping and screamed in rage. No! They are mine! You cannot take them from me! They were never yours, Nora called back. They are their own, just like you are your own. You do not need an army to matter. You do not need revenge to heal. You just need to choose a different path. There is no other path for me, the Feral Queen snarled. Then I am sorry. For you, Nora said softly. Because there is always another path. Always another choice. I know because I stood where you are standing, and I chose compassion over bitterness, connection over isolation, hope over despair. The Feral Queen's face contorted with grief and rage and something that might have been longing. For a moment, just a moment, Nora thought she might surrender, might accept the hand Nora was metaphorically extending. But then Vivian's voice rang out from behind Nora. Do not listen to her, sister. She is trying to weaken you with false kindness. Kill her and take her power for your own. It is the only way. Nora spun around to see Vivian standing there, a cruel smile on her beautiful face. And suddenly, everything made sense. You, Nora breathed. You are the one who gave her the texts, who taught her the forbidden magic. You created the Feral Queen. Vivian shrugged elegantly. I simply pointed an angry, powerful woman in the right direction. She did the rest herself, and now she is going to remove you from the picture so Kale will be forced to take me back. Kale's roar shook the walls. He shifted mid-leap, his massive black wolf form terrifying in its fury. He went straight for Vivian, murder in his silver eyes. But Vivian was faster than she looked. She dodged, pulling out a blade coated in something dark. Wolfsbane, the concentrated, deadly variant. I did not want it to come to this, Kale, she said. But you left me no choice. You were supposed to be mine. We were supposed to rule together. And she, Vivian pointed the blade at Nora, ruined everything. She lunged, not at Kale, but at Nora. Kale tried to intercept, but Vivian had planned this. Timed it perfectly. The blade was going to find its mark. And then Shadow was there. The massive primordial appeared out of nowhere, placing itself between Nora and the poisoned blade. The weapon sank deep into Shadow's shoulder, and the ancient wolf howled in pain. No! Nora screamed. She ran to Shadow, her hands already glowing with the healing light of her gift. Behind her, Kale pinned Vivian to the ground, his teeth at her throat. Below, the battle had stopped. Ferals and warriors alike stood frozen, watching the drama unfold. Nora poured everything she had into Shadow. Every ounce of power. Every bit of love and gratitude and desperate hope. She would not let this magnificent creature die for her. Would not let Vivian's poison destroy something so ancient and pure. And as she worked, as she fought against the poison spreading through Shadow's system, she felt something shift inside herself. A barrier breaking. A door opening. Power flooded through her. Old power. Ancient power. The power of the first Whisperers, dormant in her blood, finally awakening fully. She was not just communicating with Shadow. She was merging with Shadow. Understanding on a level that went beyond words or images. Becoming one with the primordial's essence. When she opened, her eyes, they were glowing gold. The same gold as Shadow's eyes. And she was not alone in her body anymore. She could feel Shadow's presence. Feel the wild, pure power of the primordials flowing through her. Impossible, someone whispered. She is channeling the primordial. She is merging with it. Nora stood, and the poison that had threatened Shadow was now burning away in the face of their combined power. She turned to face the Feral Queen, and when she spoke, her voice carried Shadow's. Ancient authority. Enough! This ends now. The Feral Queen stared at her, and for the first time, Nora saw fear in these cold eyes. What are you? I am what I was always meant to be, Nora said. I am the bridge, the connection between wild and tame, between past and future. And I am offering you one last chance. Surrender. Let me heal you. Let me heal your ferals. Choose redemption over destruction. The Feral Queen looked at her army, at the ferals who were already beginning to remember themselves, at Vivian, pinned and defeated, at Nora, glowing with ancient power, and she fell to her knees. I am so tired, she whispered, so tired of being angry, of hurting, of hating. If you can truly heal me, if you can take away this poison I have become, please, do it. Nora approached her slowly, placed her hands on the feral queen's head, and did what she did best. She healed. She reached into the corruption, the twisted magic, the festering wound of rejection and rage, and she poured light into it, poured connection, poured the understanding that being rejected by one person did not define your worth, that you could survive pain and come out stronger, that there was always, always another path. The feral queen screamed as the corruption burned away, as the forbidden magic left her system, as she became herself again for the first time in months. When it was over, she collapsed, sobbing. A young woman again, broken but no longer twisted, capable of healing. Nora turned to the ferals. One by one, she touched them, healed them, returned them to themselves. It took hours. By the time she finished, the sun was setting, and Nora was exhausted. But hundreds of wolves who had been lost were found again. Shadow's presence gradually withdrew from her body, returning to the primordial's own form. But the connection remained, stronger than ever, permanent now. You have done well, little sister, Shadow communicated. You have proven yourself worthy of the gift, worthy of the crown, worthy of everything. Nora swayed, and Kale was there to catch her. He had shifted back to human form, wrapped in a cloak, his eyes full of wonder and love. You saved them all, he murmured. You magnificent, impossible woman. You saved them all. We saved them, Nora corrected. All of us, together. She looked at the assembled wolves, former ferals, confused but grateful, pack warriors awed and respectful, the primordials, ancient and approving. And in the center of it all, Vivian, still pinned, still defiant. What should we do with her? One of the council members asked. She orchestrated all of this. She deserves death. She deserves justice, Nora said. Exile. Strip her of her rank and her pack ties. Let her wander alone until she learns the value of the connections she tried to destroy. And if she ever sets foot in our territories again, then and only then will we speak of harsher punishment. It was a mercy Vivian did not deserve. But Nora was tired of cruelty, tired of revenge. She wanted to build something better. Vivian was dragged away, screaming threats and promises of vengeance. But they were empty words. She had lost, completely and utterly. The feral queen, whose name Nora learned was Sarah, was given a choice. She could leave, start over somewhere new, or she could stay, work to make amends for what she had done. Sarah chose to stay, and under Nora's guidance, she began to use her knowledge of the forbidden magic to help undo its effects on others who had been touched by it. The wolves who had been ferals were welcomed into Blackthorn territory, given homes, given purpose, given the chance to rebuild their lives. And through it all, Nora and Kale grew closer. The bond that had started as fate became choice, became love, became partnership in its truest form. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments, did you see this ending coming? 6 months after the battle, Nora stood in the sacred grove where she had been claimed as queen. But this time, she was there for a different ceremony. The unification ceremony, where representatives from every pack in the Northern Territories gathered to pledge themselves not just to the Alpha King, but to a new way of being. A way that honored the wild wolves, that respected those who were different, that chose connection over conquest. Nora wore a crown now, simple silver with moonstones. She had argued against it, but Kale had insisted. You are a queen, he had said. Let the world see it. Beside her, Kale stood tall and proud, her mate, her partner, her love. And around them, an alliance that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Pack wolves and wild wolves, shifters and primordials, former enemies, now friends. Oracle Thea stepped forward, her ancient eyes twinkling. "The prophecy is fulfilled," she announced. The Whisperer rose. She stood between the wild and the tame, and she united the wolves. Instead of watching them destroy each other, the moon goddess is pleased. The gathered wolves howled their approval. The sound rose into the night sky, wild and beautiful and free. Nora closed her eyes and let it wash over her. This was her pack now. Not just Blackthorn, all of them. Every wolf who had chosen unity over division, chosen love over fear. That night, alone in their chambers, Cale pulled Nora close. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Regret what?" "This life, the responsibility, the danger. You could have been free, could have lived quietly somewhere, healing animals, bothering no one." Nora smiled and kissed him. "I was never free before. I was just isolated. There is a difference. This life, with you, with our people, with purpose and belonging and love. This is freedom. This is what I was always meant for." "I love you," Cale said. "Not because the bond tells me to, not because fate decided, but because of who you are. Because you took every ounce of pain and rejection and turned it into compassion. Because you are the strongest person I have ever known." "I love you too," Nora whispered. "And I choose you. Every day. Every moment. I choose you." They made love that night, with the bond singing between them, with the future stretching bright and uncertain before them, with the knowledge that whatever came, they would face it together. Later, as Nora drifted off to sleep in Cale's arms, she felt Shadow's presence brush against her mind. "Sleep well, little sister. You have earned your rest. Tomorrow brings new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to be the bridge this world needs. But tonight, you have peace. Tonight, you are exactly where you belong." And for the first time in her entire life, Nora knew with absolute certainty that she was home. Not in a place, but in a purpose, in a love, in a choice to be more than what others believed she could be. They had called her mad for trusting beasts, had called her broken for being different, had called her worthless for lacking a wolf, but she had become the Whisperer Queen, had united wolves across the territories, had turned enemies into allies and impossibility into reality. And in doing so, she had learned the most important lesson of all, that the greatest power was not strength or status or the ability to dominate. The greatest power was connection, understanding, the choice to see the spark of worth in every being and fan it into flame. That was what made her a queen. Not the crown, not the mate bond, not even the gift. Just the choice to be kind when the world had been cruel, to build bridges when others built walls, to love when it would have been easier to hate. And that was a power no one could ever take away.